The small-town courtroom was prepared for a routine trespassing case. Then the doors opened, and a Navy Admiral in full-dress uniform walked down the center aisle. Military veterans stood at attention. The judge's hands trembled as she read the sealed documents. And suddenly, everyone realized the quiet woman in handcuffs wasn't who they thought she was. Because Alexandra Hayes wasn't just an ordinary woman caught at a shooting range. She was at the center of a classified Navy operation that had been running for 3 years. And today, that operation was compromised. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before diving into this incredible story, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because Alexandra's story proves that the biggest secrets are often hidden in the most ordinary places. Alexandra Hayes was the woman nobody noticed, mid-30s, average height, calm, not talkative. She had been coming to Pine Valley shooting range for 3 months, same routine every time. Arrive at 9 a.m., rent lane 7, shoot quietly for 2 hours, leave without talking to anyone. Other shooters barely noticed her. Range Officer Tom Miller knew Alexandra as the quiet woman. He'd describe her as never causing problems, perfect shooting, clean up, and leave, the ideal customer. But if Tom had really observed Alexandra's shooting technique, he might have noticed strange things. That stance, that breath control, that trigger discipline, not just professional level, military grade. Alexandra was hitting bullseyes at 100 yards with iron sights. Her grouping at 200 yards was the size of a quarter. At 300 yards, she was still hitting close to center. These were impossible levels for civilian shooting. And the strangest thing, she never brought ID. Range policy required identification, but Alexandra would say she'd forgotten it at home. Tom allowed it because she never caused problems, because Alexandra Hayes wasn't just doing target practice as a hobby. She was training, constantly, disciplined, with military precision. October 15th, Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Alexandra was doing her normal Sunday routine. Lane 7, same pistol, Glock 19, same distances. But something was different today. There were federal agents at the range conducting FBI background checks. They called it routine security sweep, but Alexandra sensed tension. Federal presence was never good. At 9:45, Alexandra completed her normal 100-yard shots, perfect scores. Then she moved to 200 yards, again perfect grouping. That's when other shooters at the range started paying attention. Old Hunter Joe whispered to Tom about how that woman was shooting so well. Tom shrugged it off as natural talent, saying some people were just born good at it. But Tom was wrong. Alexandra's talent wasn't natural, it was professional. At 10 o'clock, Alexandra set up a 300-yard target. Everyone at the range was surprised. A 300-yard shot with civilian equipment was nearly impossible. Alexandra took her stance. Perfect isosceles position. Breathing controlled, sight alignment with military precision. Trigger squeeze, gradual and smooth. Bang, bullseye. Everyone at the range stopped shooting. A 300-yard iron sight bullseye was legendary achievement for civilian shooters. Alexandra reloaded calmly and took a second shot. Again, bullseye. At that moment, Tom became suspicious. This wasn't normal civilian shooting. Tom approached Alexandra, asking about her incredible shooting and where she'd learned such technique. Alexandra answered simply that it was practice. Tom wasn't convinced, noting that this level required professional instruction and asking about military background. Alexandra paused. That question was dangerous territory. She denied military experience, claiming it was just her hobby. Tom remained unconvinced and explained that regulations required ID verification, asking to see her identification for the 3rd time she'd come without it. Alexandra hesitated. This was the difficult part. She admitted she didn't have it with her again. Tom explained that federal regulations required identification for range use. Other shooters overheard the conversation. Joe approached and noted the identification problem, observing that this woman was clearly professional based on her impossible shooting performance. Alexandra remained calm but became internally alert. She was drawing attention, which was dangerous. She quietly said she should leave and began packing her equipment, but Tom became firm, explaining that federal agents were present and he might need to report suspicious activity. Alexandra froze. Federal agents meant her cover could be blown. Tom called over the federal agents at the range. Agents Smith and Johnson approached to assess the situation. Tom explained the problem: a woman coming without ID for 3 months and performing impossible-level shooting, 300-yard iron sight bullseyes. Agent Johnson looked at Alexandra, then at the targets, raising his eyebrows at the precision. The agents requested identification from Alexandra, who explained she didn't have it with her. When asked for her name and address, she provided minimal information. Alexandra Hayes, local resident. Agent Smith became suspicious. Evasive answers, professional shooting skills, no ID, red flags everywhere. The agents explained they needed to verify her identity and requested she come for questioning. Alexandra evaluated her options. Resisting would completely blow her cover, but complying was risky, yet manageable. She asked if she was under arrest and was told it was routine questioning. Alexandra nodded calmly in understanding. Internally, emergency protocols were activating. Cover potentially compromised. Extraction might be needed. Agent Smith radioed base about a potential person of interest. Female, mid-30s, exceptional marksmanship skills, no identification, bringing her in for questioning. The response instructed processing through local authorities, then federal custody if warranted. Alexandra's heart rate didn't increase. She had rehearsed this scenario hundreds of times, though she'd never wanted it to happen. Pine Valley Police Station was small and quiet, usually handling traffic violations and minor disputes. Federal cases were rare. Officer Martinez processed Alexandra through booking. Fingerprints, photos, personal effects inventory, standard procedure. But Alexandra's personal effects were unusual. No wallet, no phone, no keys. Only shooting equipment and cash, very unusual. When asked again about identification, Alexandra confirmed she had none. When asked for her social security number, she hesitated. Giving her real SSN would expose her identity. Giving a fake one was a federal crime. She requested to speak with an attorney. Officer Martinez found this suspicious. An attorney request for a simple trespassing case was unusual. Agent Smith began interrogation, impressed by her shooting skills and asking where she'd learned them. Alexandra claimed self-taught, but Smith pointed out that 300-yard iron sight bullseyes weren't self-taught and required professional instruction. Alexandra remained silent when pressed about military background checks showing no Alexandra Hayes in military records. When asked about law enforcement or private security background, she denied both. Agent Smith grew frustrated, noting her shooting skills were at federal law enforcement level and demanding to know who had trained her professionally. Alexandra looked directly at Agent Smith and requested her phone call. Alexandra was given her phone call right. She dialed a number that only one person knew, her emergency contact. She identified herself with a code and calmly reported that her cover was potentially compromised. She was in local law enforcement custody with federal agents involved at Pine Valley Police Station. The voice on the other end immediately went alert, asking for her status and location. After receiving the information, they told her to hold position while extraction protocol was initiated. The line disconnected after just 10 seconds. Officer Martinez was confused by such a brief call. No lawyer, family, or bail bondsman contacted. Meanwhile, Agent Smith was reviewing background check results. The Alexandra Hayes identity existed, but seemed shallow, like a recent creation. The address was fake, employment history thin, references non-existent. Smith told Johnson that the woman was a ghost with a fabricated identity, possibly a foreign operative, witness protection, or someone from their side working deep cover, very deep cover that they had blown. Agent Smith's phone rang with an unknown number. The caller identified himself as Admiral Richardson from Naval Intelligence, stating they had one of his people in custody. When Smith described the unidentified female with exceptional shooting skills and no proper ID, the Admiral ordered immediate release of Commander Hayes and instructed them to forget the incident occurred. Smith was shocked to learn she was a commander involved in classified operations. The Admiral hung up, leaving Smith to tell Johnson they were in deep trouble. But bureaucratic wheels were already turning. Alexandra had been processed with formal charges: trespassing, failure to provide identification, suspicious activity. Pine Valley Courthouse had scheduled an arraignment for Tuesday morning, a small-town procedure for what seemed like a routine case. Judge Eleanor Morrison reviewed the docket, seeing what appeared to be a simple case of an unidentified woman, shooting range incident, with federal involvement. She expected a standard arraignment, probable fine, and closed case. The courtroom had few people: court clerk, bailiff, prosecutor, public defender, and a couple of curious locals. Alexandra sat calmly at the defendant table in orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, maintaining dignified posture with no fear or anxiety. When Judge Morrison announced the case and read the charges: trespassing on private property, failure to provide identification to law enforcement, suspicious activity potentially threatening public safety, the public defender whispered advice about a simple guilty plea with fine payment. But Alexandra said she needed to wait because someone was coming. The confused public defender asked who, and Alexandra smiled slightly, saying something like that. When the judge asked how the defendant pleaded, the public defender requested a continuance because the defendant expected representation. Before the public defender could explain who would represent her, the heavy oak courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned to see a Navy Admiral in full-dress uniform walking down the center aisle. With medals gleaming, ribbons pristine, and 4 stars clearly visible, he was an imposing figure of absolute authority. Military veterans in the courtroom instinctively stood at attention, and even the bailiff straightened his posture. Judge Morrison's face drained of color. An admiral in her courtroom meant this wasn't a routine case anymore. The admiral approached the bench and handed a sealed envelope to the bailiff, explaining that Commander Hayes was under classified naval operations, and the documents would explain everything. Judge Morrison's hands trembled as she broke the seal and read quickly, her face growing whiter with each line. After a long moment, she looked up and dismissed all charges, sealing the case under federal classification. The bang of her gavel was followed by confused murmurs throughout the courtroom. The bailiff quickly removed Alexandra's handcuffs as the admiral approached her. The admiral asked if she was injured, and Alexandra reported she was not, asking about mission status. He informed her it was compromised, but salvageable, requiring debriefing. Judge Morrison approached hesitantly, and the admiral explained that Commander Hayes had been conducting classified operations for Naval Intelligence, with her presence at the shooting range being part of an ongoing mission. When the judge asked about the nature of the mission, the admiral stated it was classified, but confirmed that Commander Hayes was a decorated officer with multiple commendations and an exemplary service record. The public defender was amazed to learn she was really a Navy commander, and the admiral confirmed her identity: Commander Alexandra Hayes, Naval Intelligence, Special Operations Division. Agent Smith entered the courtroom looking embarrassed, and the admiral acknowledged that his people had done their job with no blame assigned, but Operation Security required immediate relocation. Alexandra finally spoke, asking if local exposure was manageable. The admiral replied negative. There had been too much attention, requiring new assignment and different location. Alexandra nodded, understanding that the Pine Valley chapter was closed. News spread quickly through Pine Valley about the local woman actually being a Navy commander. Range Officer Tom was amazed that for 3 months she'd been a perfect customer with no indication of military background. Joe the Hunter commented that her shooting skills made sense now with Naval Intelligence training. The local newspaper wanted the story, but the admiral denied interviews, citing classified operations and no publicity. Alexandra spent one final day collecting personal effects. Few had accumulated in 3 months due to the nature of cover identity. When Tom asked why she'd chosen their shooting range, Alexandra explained it was for training maintenance since skills deteriorate without practice. Tom wondered why such a small-town range, and Alexandra explained that sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight: small town, routine visits, no attention drawn. When asked if she'd return, Alexandra smiled sadly and said probably not, as the mission required relocation. Tom expressed that it had been an honor having her there, even unknowingly. Alexandra Hayes disappeared from Pine Valley as quietly as she'd arrived. No forwarding address, no goodbye parties, no trace. Pine Valley Shooting Range now has a small plaque, Reserved Lane 7 in honor of professional service. Tom never explained it to customers, but everyone understood that someone special had practiced there. Admiral Richardson debriefed Alexandra in a classified location, explaining that while her cover was blown, the mission continued with new identity and location. Alexandra understood and confirmed readiness for next assignment. The Admiral briefed her on Afghanistan intelligence suggesting terrorist training camps targeting U.S. facilities, requiring a deep cover operative for long-term assignment. Alexandra accepted without hesitation, learning the duration was indefinite and could last years. When she asked about family notification, the Admiral confirmed it was already handled. She was a ghost again. Alexandra nodded, understanding this was her life. Service without recognition, sacrifice without acknowledgement. Somewhere in America, in another small town, a new woman practices shooting with perfect technique, quiet demeanor, and no identification. Range officers don't ask questions. Customers don't pay attention. But she's there, watching, training, protecting. Because some heroes work in shadows, some legends stay hidden. And sometimes small-town shooting ranges host the most important practice sessions in America. Alexandra Hayes' story teaches us this: the greatest heroes are usually the quietest ones. Alexandra could wear prestigious uniforms, display her medals, talk about her Naval Intelligence career. But she chose service over recognition, working in shadows, staying hidden, quietly protecting her country. Military intelligence officers live among us. They practice at shooting ranges, maintain cover identities in small towns. We might not recognize them, but they're protecting us. Your quiet customer at the shooting range might be a Naval Intelligence officer. Your mysterious resident in your small town might be on a classified mission. Show respect. Don't ask questions, because sometimes national security hides behind ordinary life. At Hidden Legends, we want to tell these stories, because shadow warriors deserve recognition, even quietly. Tell us in the comments, which city are you watching from? Have you had encounters with mysterious people? If Alexandra's story impressed you, like the video and subscribe to Hidden Legends. Every day we share stories of hidden service. Remember, the greatest protection often comes from unknown protectors. See you in the next Hidden Legends video.